Lupercalia fragilistic expialidocious. Lupercalia fragilistic expialidocious. Lupercalia fragilistic expialidocious. Lupercalia fragilistic expialidocious. Ha ha ha! Welcome, welcome, welcome to You Are the Spell, and I am Aunt Carla. Okay, so that's not the actual song. It's not the actual song title. The title of that song is actually Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And that song is from the Disney movie Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is a magical nanny in that movie, and she enchants some difficult children, I guess kind of like Bebe's kids, and their father. Now, since I'm talking about the holiday, the pagan holiday of Lupercalia today, that song came to mind and I can't seem to stop singing it. So if after listening to this podcast, the song becomes an earworm in your ear as well, you're welcome. Now, you know how some people like to call certain special days Hallmark holidays, as if the card company made them up just so they can sell you cards or make you watch their rom-coms? In my experience, the person is usually complaining because they're trying to get out of buying you a gift. I said what I said. Anyway, in my research on magical traditions, it turns out that humans love to party. Period. Animals are just party animals. Because whenever I study pre-Christian holidays, sex, fertility, and bonfires are usually involved. And there's also some kind of divination, like picking random pieces of paper or looking at fruit shavings and trying to figure out who your mate was going to be. They did this a lot before Christianity. There was a lot of sex happening, a lot of hope for sex, a lot of stuff. And for thousands of years before Christianity, our ancestors have celebrated all kinds of special days, which were later rebranded for Jesus, and that includes Saint Valentine's Day. Now, you may have heard the legend of the original Valentine, who was a Roman priest who married Christian couples at a time when aiding Christians was against the law. So this priest, Valentine, was condemned to death and later martyred as a saint. So if you're Catholic and you know anything about Saint Valentine, you might have heard all of these different ways that he became a saint, but basically he was killed, therefore that made him enabled to, that made him, he was put in the line, he was in the running to become a saint. Now, long before that Saint Valentine's Day, February 15th was the date of Lupercalia, which was an ancient Roman fertility festival, and it was dedicated to Faunus, the Roman god of agriculture. Now, this event involved wine, nudity, and slapping women with strips of goat hide drenched in sacrificial blood. No, really, those Romans, they sure knew how to party, right? So to begin the festival, members of the Luperci, that was an order of Roman priests, would gather at a sacred cave where the infants Romulus and Remus, who were the founders of Rome, were believed to have been cared for by a she-wolf or a lupa. The priests would sacrifice a goat for fertility and a dog for purification. Then they would strip the goat's hide into strips, dip them into the sacrificial blood, and take to the streets. And I guess the priests were naked except for the goat hide. I'm not sure how that all worked out. But anyway, they would strip the goat hide into strip the goat's hide into strips, dip them into the sacrificial blood, take to the streets, and gently slap both women and crop fields with the goat hide. Now, believe it or not, far from being fearful, Roman women, they welcomed the touch of the hides because it was believed to make them more fertile in the coming year. And according to legend, later that day, all the young women in the city would place their names in a big urn, and the city's bachelors would each choose a name, and they would become paired for the year with his chosen woman. They could even hook up that night. And these matches often ended in marriage. Wild story, right? Well, in the 5th century, Pope Gelasius, he outlawed Lupercalia, and he made up a new family-friendlier event to take its place. And it was a day to honor Saint Valentine on February 14th, which was the day that he was martyred. Now, during the Middle Ages, people in England and France were said to associate February 14th with the beginning of birds' mating season. And this led to the superstition that a woman could tell what kind of man she would marry by the type of bird that she spotted on Valentine's Day. Yes, love was for the birds. I wonder if that's where we get the birds and the bees discussion. But I digress. This focus on birds led to the superstition that a woman could tell what kind of man she would marry by the type of bird that she spotted on Valentine's Day. A blackbird signified a priest, a bluebird meant a funny dude, a dove equaled a kind man, a goldfinch meant a super rich one, and a woodpecker, well, signified no man at all. So, over the holidays, I found myself in a Hallmark research rabbit hole. And I learned that Hallmark doesn't invent holidays. They just show up to where the holidays were already happening. For example, Christmas is the holiday where people send the most cards. So in 1951, which was the early days of television, Hallmark sponsored Christmas television programs in order to promote their greeting card business. It's now 72 years later, and Hallmark has expanded its empire with its own brand of romantic Christmas romantic movies. Christmas romantic movies, you get the idea. And 2 streaming movie channels. And this month, Hallmark has turned February into Love-uary with more original romantic movies on its streaming channels. So Hallmark never created any holidays. The company just showed up where people were already partying and offered ways to celebrate. Do you remember their motto, when you care enough to send the very best? Yes. Christianity, on the other hand, they showed up to where people were already partying, and they offered so-called family-friendly versions of the holiday. Okay, moving on. Valentine's Day can be a loaded topic, especially if you're single. And Valentine's Day often triggers people into feeling some kind of way, depending on their love life, or lack of at the moment. Personally, I feel that this holiday is a good time to examine your relationship with love affairs. Most importantly, the love affair that you have with yourself. By the way, I created a holiday for February 15th, and I called it Love Reset Day. Did you know that you can create your own holidays? I submitted it to Chase's Book of Holidays, and PR companies use this book to come up with holidays or to get ideas on how to promote things. But if you don't believe me, go ahead and Google it. Go ahead and Google Love Reset Day. Now, I originally created this holiday to promote my book, The Love Reset, Go From Romantic Breakdown to Breakthrough, that I wrote in 2016. My idea for this holiday was that if you found yourself going off the deep end emotionally on Valentine's Day, February 14th, then February 15th could be the day that you give yourself a love reset and come back to yourself. I wrote that book when I was in the dating and relationship niche. And I realize now that my self-esteem had been in the toilet because I was chasing a dead end relationship. Dead as a doorknob dead. So writing that book was really powerful because that book turned out to be a manual that I was writing for myself, a love letter even, to get myself out of this seemingly bottomless romantic hole that I had found myself in. Have you ever been that way? You know, you find yourself chasing after this person who's just not interested, whether it's a friend zone kind of situation or a friend with benefits, some kind of situationship. That was me for a really long time. But the thing is, I always believed that my love magic was powerful because if I did a spell, I could always attract somebody. I could always attract them. But until I did the necessary shadow work, my magic attracted the same partner over and over again, but with a different face. So when I realized how I was getting in my own way, I was able to use magic to finally attract and accept, very important, the kind of love that I deserved. And once I graduated from that dark time in my life, you know, I was no longer interested in writing about dating and relationships. I was like, nah, I'm good. I work my shit out. But interestingly enough, this love reset holiday has gained momentum without me. And other people that I don't even know write about this holiday now. So if this idea appeals to you at all, you can find my book, The Love Reset, on Amazon. It's available on Amazon Kindle. So if you have been going through something, or if you're feeling fragile, I recommend that you practice self-compassion. One book that has had a major impact on me over the years is When Things Fall Apart, written by a Buddhist nun, Pema Chödrön. And in this book, she talks about treating yourself with loving kindness when you're going through a hard time. We don't always give ourselves the same amount of grace that we extend to others. And goodness knows that we need it. And lately, the Japanese art of kintsugi has been on my mind. Kintsugi is the Japanese art of putting broken pottery pieces back together with gold. And it's built on the idea that in embracing flaws and imperfections, you can create an even stronger, more beautiful piece of art. Every break is unique. And instead of repairing an item like new, this 400-year-old technique actually highlights the scars as a part of the design. And using this as a metaphor for healing ourselves, it teaches us an important lesson. Sometimes, in the process of repairing things that have broken, we actually create something more unique, beautiful, and resilient. You might not know this, but I have recently started painting. And at the time of this recording, I have been obsessed with painting kintsugi hearts with watercolor and a sparkly gold marker. So the finished painting is a blood red watercolor heart that is outlined in gold, and it has many cracks filled with gold. I believe that the gold-filled cracks represent the self-compassion and the loving kindness that we give to ourselves in order to heal from heartbreak. Kintsugi means golden joinery or golden repair. And when it comes to your heart, this kind of joinery or repair can only be done by you. If you're interested in applying the concept of kintsugi in your life, I've also seen kintsugi ritual kits offered on Etsy. I also came across a book called Kintsugi Wellness, the Japanese Art of Nourishing Mind, Body, and Spirit by Candace Kumai, and it goes deeper into using this practice for self-healing. And finally, I want to talk about creating a self-love altar as a healing practice. The purpose of a self-love altar is to create a space in your home when you tend to your self-love in order to connect to your most lovable self. And when you tend to that aspect of yourself, you will attract more love in your life. And this self-love ritual is one that I suggest that you repeat weekly. I recommend Fridays as it's ruled by Venus, the goddess of love. The more you tend to your self-love altar, the more that your personal standards will raise and your boundaries will strengthen. You'll no longer settle for less than you deserve romantically. Most importantly, having a self-love altar helps you to fall in love with yourself, which is the best love spell of all. And the byproduct of falling in love with yourself is that you will effortlessly attract romantic partners, if that's what you want. So if you're interested in the self-love ritual, check the link in the description or visit my Red Soulflower YouTube channel. And if you're interested in learning about love magic, you can sign up for my free 5-day Lovecraft email course at redsoulflower.com/lovecraft. So I hope that any of these tips and thoughts and holidays were helpful for you. And go out there and love yourself. You know, if anyone happens to love you back, that's the bonus. And you know why? Because you are magic.